Perhaps the thorniest issue in the Israeli-Arab conflict is the territory behind me, the old city of Jerusalem with its Temple Mount. In Islam, it is the third holiest site after Mecca and Medina, although it is never mentioned in the Quran. In Judaism, it is the holiest site of all. One has to bear in mind that during Jordan's 19 years of occupation and annexation, Jordan's sovereignty over the West Bank and Jerusalem was never recognized by the United Nations.
The Palestinians want Jerusalem as the capital because the Islamic world will consider them as traitors if they will leave Jerusalem to Israel. This is why the struggle of Jerusalem is actually the criterion which will determine whether there will be a Palestinian state or not. If Israel continues to stick to Jerusalem, there will not be a Palestinian state. Because they know that once they extract Jerusalem from Israel, Israel will vanish. And they know it very well.
One of the really interesting questions is what is the status of what is called East Jerusalem. Now, this is that the PLO claim to have as the capital city of their Palestinian state. What they mean by East Jerusalem is in fact the old city of Jerusalem. If you look at the so-called Green Line, which they're arguing is the boundary or the border between Palestine and Israel, it runs through the heart of Jerusalem. And the old city of Jerusalem, which includes the old Jewish quarter, it includes the Temple Mount, includes the Mount of Olives, so many of the really old parts of Jerusalem are on the other side of the Green Line. So what that would do is cut off all of that part of Jerusalem from Israel. In addition, the Palestinians are saying no Israeli Jew will be allowed to live in East Jerusalem. So all the Jews who have lived there over the centuries, let's bear in mind, for example, that after 1870, Jerusalem was a majority Jewish city, not an Arab one.
In 1864, the British consulate in Jerusalem actually provided some census data. And they said out of 15,000 residents in Jerusalem in 1863, 8,000 were Jewish.
You have to remember that until the middle of the 19th century, Jerusalem was the old city.
And therefore, to characterize it as simply, oh yes, that's another Arab city, is wrong. We have to create arrangements in which Muslims, Christians, and Jews can feel religious freedom with their various spiritual ties to Jerusalem. But Jerusalem must be under the sovereignty of Israel.
The rights that were granted in respect to the city of Jerusalem, based on historical connection, based on the right of the Jewish people to reconstitute what they had. When today we look at the competing claims in respect to Jerusalem, I want to underline the fact that you have to take into consideration what happened in San Remo and what was reflected in the treaty known as the Mandate for Palestine. And you have to keep in mind that the Charter of the United Nations specifies that when it was put together, when the UN was established, nothing was to take away from the rights of people previously granted. Included in that statement are the rights granted to the Jewish people at the Villa de Vachon.
Clearly, the rights of the Jewish people to their historic capital city are enshrined in international treaty law. So why are the Palestinian Arabs, who historically never even had a national identity as such, so hell-bent on having the historic capital of Israel as their own? What is really going on here?
The problem is not land, and the problem is not Israel. The problem is our essence as Jews.
لا تقوم الساعة حتى تقاتل اليهود فيختبئ اليهودي وراء الحجر أو الشجر فينادي الحجر أو الشجر يا مسلم يا عبد الله هذا يهودي ورائي تعال فاقتله لأن حربنا
مع أبناء القردة والخنازير هي حرب دينية عقائدية. فلتحيا فتح، تحيا.
Palestinian Media Watch was founded in 1996 by Itamar Marcus. He and his team have been monitoring broadcasts of the official Palestinian Authority's television channels, radio stations and print media since the Second Intifada that began in the year 2000.
The Palestinian Authority tells their people that the Jewish people did not have a history in the land of Israel. And this is one of their fundamental principles of their ideology. And therefore they claim that there never was a Jewish presence in Jerusalem. They've had professors on television saying absurd things like, in all the years of excavation, Israel has never found even one coin to connect them to the land.
إلا في فلسطين 60 عاما من الحفريات وخاب ظنهم فلم يجدوا شيئا، لا إبريقا، لا عملة، لا فخارية، لا برونزية، لا قطع معدنية، لا شيء على الإطلاق من هذه الأسطورة لأنها أسطورة وكاذبة.
The ironic thing here is that every time there is a major find of significance that connects the Jewish people to Jerusalem, including beautiful gold ornaments found with a shofar and a Torah scroll and even a menorah engraved in it. And this was found right near the Western Wall. So the Palestinian Authority former Prime Minister Abu Allah came on television and denied that it was true, and he said these are all false claims by Israel.
أنا أعتبر أن كل هذا تزوير للحقيقة. كل هذا محاولة ادعاء. لم يجدوا شيئا. حفروا تحت المسجد الأقصى لم يجدوا شيئا. لم يجدوا إلا آثار رومانية وبيزنطية. لم يجدوا إلا آثار قديمة كنعانية خفيفة. لم يجدوا شيئا حجارة.
But no, the Palestinians deny all of these things because it's critical for them. It's critical for them that Israel have no right to exist.
In October 2016, the member states of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations based in Paris, otherwise known as UNESCO, passed the last of a series of resolutions that denied any Jewish historic connection to Jerusalem and acknowledged only an Islamic connection to the Holy City. This politically motivated resolution shamefully denies the abundant archaeological evidence that supports the Jewish presence here from antiquity, such as the massive stones from the Herodian era that are found all around here.
An UNESCO resolution that basically talks and says that Jews and Israel do not have any connection to Jerusalem and the Temple Mount is something that should stay in history as the biggest lie.
UNESCO actually, quite frighteningly, voted to make the whole of the Temple Mount, along with the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Qubbat al-Sakhra, the Dome of the Rock, and the Western Wall, and the, I don't know if you know, in Hebron there is the Tomb of the Patriarchs, Ma'arat HaMechpela. They're all considered, and a lot of other places, they're all considered to be Islamic. And they've always been. There's never been Jewish. There's never any connection with the Jews. But it's crazy stuff. But you know, UNESCO is doing this?
It's rewriting history, which I don't think so that anybody that, not only in the academics, but I think so, regular population in the world, I don't think so that anyone really believes. I'm sure that if they would say, make a resolution that the world is square, they can succeed with that also. No doubt about that.
But it's indicative of a refusal to accept not just a Jewish presence, but Christian presence. You know, if they're denying the fact that there was a temple, they're denying the fact that Jesus was a Jewish rabbi, teacher, who was wandering around in this area then.
And by the way, leave the bad guys out. But you have European countries who vote or abstain on this resolution, vote with it or abstain. Italy, Spain, France, This is absolutely outrageous, because this is the first step to denying Christians any connection to Jerusalem. Those lies and half-truths, if you don't confront them, can really have an effect for a very long time. So from my point of view, this resolution in UNESCO is a shame on UNESCO and anyone who is signatory to this resolution.
One of the most astonishing things is that the Western media does nothing to challenge the Islamic and Palestinian propaganda that denies the proven historic connection of the Jewish people to Jerusalem. I'm not just talking about Hamas, which everyone knows is a sworn enemy of the Jewish state, but about the Palestinian Authority, whose main political party is Fatah and supposedly Israel's peace partner.
I don't think that there is an interest of the Palestinian leader to solve the conflict.
حيي كل ذرة دم أريقت في سبيل القدس فهي دماء نظيفة، دماء نقية، دماء في سبيل الله إن شاء الله، وكل شهيد سيكون في الجنة وكل جريح سيكتب له الله الثواب. هذا الأقصى لنا والقيامة لنا، كلها لنا، لا يحق لهم أن يدنسوها بأقدامهم القذرة.
In my opinion, the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian leadership are not acting since the Oslo Agreement until today as a leadership. I think that these people are acting as a mafia. These people are considered as one of the biggest corrupt leadership right now in the 21st century. And I think that the Palestinians start realizing more and more that with such leadership, we will never be able to solve our conflict with the Israelis.
In the next episode of Whose Land, 3 former Israeli ambassadors to the United Nations, together with our team of international lawyers, examine the role of the UN in assisting the Palestinians to gain statehood by stealth.